worst part about them wanting to put the ass back in astronaut and the way this whole thing is being covered is that the really amazing stories of the other women who were in that rocket are being completely overlooked. In fact, this woman is unbelievable. Amanda Nguyen, I'm going to go into her story now because this is what she was hoping would happen, is bring awareness to this. So I'm going to do that in this post. But just so we're clear, my criticism is of these two, okay? Katy and a billionaire Sanchez. My man is evil. The other women, I encourage you to look them up. I mean, Gail is kind of a celebrity, but she's a journalist, okay? But these three women are awesome. She was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Okay? She changed laws that impact every woman in the United States. But instead, we're listening to her talk about, her irises, no, daisies. I don't even care. Some dumb flower. She brings a butterfly up there with her new album. Like, this woman, God! Ah! And then she's just like, let's make it glam and make everybody has to look pretty. Meanwhile, she's just literally doing an infomercial for a billionaire's company to destroy the planet through sending rich people to space. Which, for what? 4 minutes so they can be like, hey, look at me looking down on all you. Right? What we are not going to do is say that these two are like the rest. Okay? Because you cannot compare this white woman and her white feminism to all the other women. These are not all a bunch of out-of-touch rich celebrities, okay? It's mostly these two who said the most offensive stuff, the most so that's what I hate about this, is because these two are so awful. All of the women are being clumped in as like out-of-touch rich celebrities, which half of them are not celebrities. Now, if you do not know Amanda's story, I encourage you to look it up and maybe even buy her book. I actually want to read the book now. This article in The Guardian, good place to start. I screamed and the world listened. It's in The Guardian. If you can't afford the book, or maybe you want to buy the book, oh, look at you in your car. Read this article and it'll probably make you want to buy her book. Because I had no idea, because all the focus was on Bezos and Sanchez and, I gotta go back to marry my man, and Katy and her dumb album coming out and, selling makeup and selling space tourism and selling a probably terrible album. All of that overshadowed this woman's story. Just hers alone should have been the focus of this, but it wasn't, because anytime you do anything with billionaires, they're always going to center themselves and actually make you look awful, but for being with them, okay? But I get why she was on that rocket. It's probably her only chance to ever go for her. You know what? I love that for her. But I hate that this is how she went, because I am firmly against space tourism. Anyway, we're going to get into her story in a second. I also highly encourage you to read this, The Death of Celebrity Feminism, because this is what we need, okay? Lauren Sanchez, Sheryl Sandberg, they are not feminists. Any woman, Lauren Sanchez was at the inauguration. She is married to one of the most evil men in the world. And she is enjoying being on these yachts and going to space and spending his money that is made off the violent exploitation of millions of people, and especially their workers. So no thanks. You're not a feminist, Lauren. I mean, I really don't even like this title. I mean, I used to write a lot for the Daily Beast, and they're oftentimes spot on. I have not read the whole article yet. Let's call it what it is. Rich women showing off. No, it's two super rich women. One hoarding wealth on a level of it should be a crime. Rich woman who then used other women to push her company. That's what that was. But I'm pretty sure at least half of that ship was not super rich. Unfortunately, the entire trip became about Katy Perry and Lauren Sanchez. The only thing that I found annoying was that Amanda kind of went along with this thing about how we need to see astronauts in makeup. And I get her point here. This dichotomy of engineer and scientist, and then beauty and fashion, we contain multitudes. Women are multitudes. I'm going to be wearing lips. Like, I get it. But what about those of us who never wear makeup and don't want to wear makeup and don't want to wear, like, did they have to wear a sexy suit to space? This is giving like Halloween vibe. Sexy nurse, sexy witch, sexy maker of pizza, sexy, like literally everything sexy. That is like, but that's the only thing that I've seen Amanda say that I'm like, what? But everything else, I want to brag on her. But first, just remember, so Aisha, the former rocket scientist at NASA, so she belonged on that rocket. She earned her place there. I'm glad she finally got to go. I just hate that she had to be affiliated with Katy Perry and Lauren Sanchez. Also, there's person of Bahamian heritage to go to space. I think she even held up the flag up there. Well, Katy Perry's holding up her butterfly set list and his dumb Daisy or whatever. The other women brought stuff that actually meant something really important to them and their community, their family. But like Katie's like, oh my God, buy my album because I can't sell out shows. This is not feminism, okay? This is like choice feminism, white feminism, but this is not feminism. But this is what this whole space thing became because of her and Lauren. So Amanda went there to be not only as the first Vietnamese woman, but also as a survivor of SA. We're going to go into that story in a minute. So Amanda's like, my parents are boat refugees from Vietnam, came on boats, and now we're on spaceships. This year is actually the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, or as they know it, the American War. There are these two parts of myself as a Vietnamese woman that were former enemies. So she talks about how like this is also her of like making peace with something much bigger. You know what I mean? Like, I get why she wanted to go so bad. I get why she was like, yes! That actually gave me chills. Because I knew a little bit of her backstory when I watched yesterday. But now that I've read up even more, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm glad that she was on that shit. I just hate that the whole point of that that they use these women and their stories, right? When they interviewed her, that white woman interviewed her. She said that you said that you needed to go to space to heal. I know you're only a few minutes removed from this incredible experience, but do you feel healed? This woman who was doing the interviews drove me crazy. I swear to God, she was just trying to sell this space tourism crap. The questions she asked were kind of offensive, not just to her, but to, I already covered this in my last video. So let me just give you a quick recap of Amanda, how awesome she is and why this was so important to her. And I encourage you to either buy her book or go read this article in The Guardian. 3 months before graduation from Harvard, she was living her dream, but also escaping her dad. She wanted her lifelong ambition of becoming an astronaut. She'd interned at NASA at age 18. She was thinking of working for the CIA as a spy. She'd been approached by a recruiter, right? Was like already starting to like, go off on this dream career of her. And then went to a frat party and got raped. Her body's suddenly a crime scene. Oh, that gave me chills when I read that. So while she was getting this kit done, the nurse wanted to know if she was going to be pressing charges or not. And whether she should be anonymous or be Jane Doe had a lot of weight. Because one gave her an option to persecute later. One was like, prosecute. By giving her name, it might affect her future with NASA or the CIA. And since she thought that she'd have like 15 years because of the statutes of limitations, she chose to be anonymous. She didn't want to destroy her career and she was so close to the end of studying. Then they did all these tests on her. Blood count, microbiology, chemistry, pregnancy test, mini pills, about 30, hepatitis, Hep B, HIV. She was charged. And this was back then, okay? So no telling what this is now. $4,863. As well as 65 pieces of paper, prescriptions, her side effects, form designs, all this crap. This is all labor, okay? And then she found out later on that all the kits would be destroyed after 6 months. She went through all that invasive stuff, did all that, and then found out she actually doesn't have 15 years. She had 6 months. And because as anybody who's survived trauma, who's a survivor of rape, like myself, it takes a while to process this. It took me 10 years from my last grape to even process what happened to me. Destroying the grape kit prevents survivors from being able to access vital evidence. So when she learned that the kits aren't even processed, she goes, why would I go through this invasive procedure for it to be destroyed before it's even tested? In murder cases, cold cases are solved years later because evidence is not destroyed. But for Grape, the evidence is chucked out. And she learned that the conviction rate is like 1%, and the process could take 2 to 3 years. She'd have to put her life on hold, freeze her applications and her ambition for what, 99% chance of failure? All the while dealing with the impact of Grape, which is being like a skeleton of a vivacious, happy young student. That is such an accurate description. Just feeling like dead inside and just whatever. So she decided she can't go back, she can't change time, but she could transform all this into something else. It could become an ignition. So in her memoir, Saving Five, she built a team of survivors into a powerful grassroots movement, Rise, and together she wrote look, this is what everyone should know from this. They wrote the Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights. Really important piece of legislature right here. She started this. They wrote this. So everything else about this flight like just pisses me off. But if you look into the scientists and like the women who were not there promoting albums and their billionaire husbands' dumb stuff, a lot of them have really cool stuff. Sorry, cool sounds like cool's the wrong word. Amazing, impressive, admirable, wow-inducing backstories. And yet all we hear about, this is why, like, I hate that the company you keep is a reflection of you. When space is so, like, it's hard enough for women to get to space, okay? For any women to get to space. So if you are a woman and you're also Black or you're, Vietnamese American or, the doors are not open for them. Like, if they're even less accessible times 10 for women who don't have the privilege of whiteness. So you can't compare anyone to Katy Perry and how ridiculous she is. I fully understand when I read more of the backstories of the other women, why it was important for them to go to space. Especially Amanda. I get why this was a healing trip for her. I hate that they exploited her trauma and her story and why it was important to her. Exploited it, but also minimized it at the same time to push their agenda of destroying the planet through space tourism, white feminism, and humanizing billionaires. So part of this Bill of Rights include the right to not have your kit destroyed until the statute of limitations expires. And the right to not have to pay for it to be carried out. Because at the end of the day, money is so important in everything. Money. Okay? That's why I am not a hostage in a marriage, but my grandmas and everyone before them probably were, because they couldn't access money the way I can. Any liberation of anyone without access to resources or money or whatever resources is empty. And meanwhile, Lauren Sanchez is hoarding wealth and therefore not making health and food and important things accessible. And she's, feminist empowerment. So President Obama signed it into federal law in October 2006, 3 years after she was raped. Since then, the organization Rise has worked to guarantee the same protections in each state. It has successfully passed 91 laws over the last decade, and it is also pursuing an international treaty that gives universal jurisdiction of rape cases. This exists for wrong crimes, murder, torture, but not criminal violence. Shocker, I'm sure. So in 2019, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And in 2022, she was on the Time Magazine Women of the Year. Like, this woman is so impressive. But the only reason I know any of this is because I took the time to look into it. Because the media, and especially the people paying for this coverage, are going to focus on all this other crap. Ugh. So then just a little bit about her book, which makes me honestly want to read it even more, is that if every student at Harvard is driven, then she was turbocharged. She arrived on the first day of college with her arm in a cast, having spent the previous night in the hospital after an explosion of violence in her suburban California home. While other students hugged their proud parents goodbye, she had police officers beside her and a no trespass order in place against her father. This woman has been through so much. And as a writer, and especially of creative nonfiction, I it was really touching to hear her talk about this. I wasn't going to write about my parents at all. And then she asked, another, an author, the woman who wrote Educated, where she found her strength and bravery to write about the people who are still alive. She says, if I can forgive them for my childhood, then they can forgive me for writing about it. Oh my God, y'all, that just like hit me right here. Because there's certain stories I don't share with y'all yet, because I'm not really sure if I want to deal with the consequences of those yet. It's a very personal decision. I decide when I'm ready and when I'm strong enough to deal with the fallout of doing that. Because some of my friends who are authors who've written memoirs and made their parents look great, some of their parents will never talk to them again because it didn't make them look perfect. So it's a huge risk to do this. So I admire her all the more. She said, I wanted to show the complicated nature of loving somebody who has hurt you, and also how surviving my childhood is the reason that I had the skills to survive a broken criminal justice system. So her parents came to the U.S. having both arrived as refugees after the fall of Saigon. So again, her dad was a victim of colonial empire's violence, and white supremacy. They left the country on small boats with no belongings, without most of their family, using celestial navigation, which is what made their stories made the night sky magical for her at a young age. But then her father grew into a violent, angry, abusive man. This is also really interesting to hear because, my dad was, angry, abusive man, and he was on the colonizer side, right, in Vietnam. It's really interesting to hear someone talking about their father. I don't know. Anyway, I just love storytelling, y'all. It just helps you understand humanity and the world so much better. I want to read this book now. While some childhood homes are marked by children's height noted on the wall, hers is marked by head-shaped dents in the plaster. I want you to think about that. Head-shaped dents. So it wasn't a fist going through the plaster. It was their heads being thrown into walls. Entire days were spent with her mother in the local library or the bookstore while they were waiting for her father to cool down. Oh my gosh. This is really... Anyway, it's hard to read, but also beautiful. Before re-entering the home, her mom would always leave her outside while she checked to see if it was safe. She would count the stars as she waited. The idea of going to space meant an extra layer of promise to myself that I would find a way to escape. So Harvard was her first haven, right? Away from her dad. But she had no safety net. If I didn't win that internship, if I didn't get that scholarship, I had nothing to fall back on. So she was so driven because this was like life and death for her. She didn't go home on the holidays. Look at this. She remained on the campus. Oh God, it's like this story is so unrelatable in the details, but so relatable in so many other ways about, when this kind of violence is in the family. She remained on campus, was given staff access. I really did feel like Harry Potter because I lived there. Look at that. She got to know the staff and the janitor, everyone. I was so happy that I built her life there, the community of friends, living out her dream. And that's why what happened there and the institutional betrayal that followed felt more hurtful. So when she found out that she had 6 months to choose, she was going to prosecute or let her kit be destroyed. She said, I felt like the clock was above my head and I was never released from it. But she wasn't ready to press charges because she was barely able to leave her building. But she could not stand the thought of losing all chance of future justice. So while she was on secret recruitment rounds for the CIA and stuff, she was simultaneously on a mission to save her grape kit. She was cold calling and emailing forensics labs, trying to locate it. Finally, days before the 6 months were up, the kit was located and the lab agreed to extend the deadline. But she had to fly to D.C., from D.C. to Boston to pick up the piece of paper that said request done and accept. This classic bureaucratic crap. The money alone to fly, the time to go and fly and get that piece of paper. Look at her face when the bill passed. Though she's never seen herself as an activist, she is now. She also called attention to the fact that people writing legislation, if people affected aren't at the drafting table, there are these huge gaps. It's not all these policymakers are like, screw women all the time. They just literally don't think about it because they don't care, because they don't have to think about it. So they're just like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea, and don't even bother to ask survivors. She also developed a 12-week training program for activists who want to change the law and who come from communities that they wish to serve. Like, look at all this, y'all. Pushing through the SA Survivors' Rights Act took up all of her life. She withdrew from the her CIA application. It was all consuming. I ate, slept, and dreamt about it. I could not go anywhere without talking about it. I'm not saying that that's healthy, but it was certainly a major factor in the moments. While 99% of bills don't make it through Congress, this one passed unanimously. Although the senior counsel from the Senate suggested calling it Amanda's Law, she wanted it to represent all. I love that. See, that right there says a lot. You don't want, like, don't give it to me. It's not mine. It's for them. I love that. So, all of that, plus the fact that NASA has barred women from being astronauts. One of the reasons was cited most was menstruation. That's why I'm doing it. Okay, so here's the kicker right here, is that whether or not she will access this kit and press charges is a decision for the future. The point is that she's kept the door open. I've given myself time. We've written the law to give my future self that choice. And not only should that her future self, our future selves, right? I love that. I hate that Katy Perry and Lauren, that it was all about them and that all these other women got lumped in with those two. But I love that I actually did a deep dive on this, or not deep, but looked into, because I'm really inspired by this story. And anyone knows who's ever, who has tried to go to the police, myself included. I recanted my, I said, never mind, I lied because they put me in danger. Whatever, I've told that story. I'm not going to tell it again right now. But the way that the police treat victims, and as a white woman, if they're treating me that way, there's no telling how much more awful and unhelpful and reckless and even how much endangerment the policemen cause to Black women especially, but Black, Indigenous women, any women of color who go into those police offices, there's no telling what they face. I just know what I faced, and I literally recanted and said, never mind, I lied. I made it all up, but I made sure they knew that I was lying about lying. I was like, oh great, so you're not gonna protect me, you're gonna put me in danger, you're gonna do this, this, and this? Never mind. I made it all up, officer. I didn't do that part, but anyway. And if you really want to see how hard this decision is, if you join my Patreon, they're the top 2 tiers that get to go to the live. And the live that I did with Michelle Teagle Simpson, she was one of the lawyers for a bunch of the gymnasts who were victims of Larry Nassar. And her and I discuss the pros and cons of going forward and prosecuting, and how it can be very healing, but it can also have a lot of trauma that people are not ready for or can handle at that moment, right? It actually made me feel better about the way I've dealt with mine, and versus how, in other situations I may have pressed charges and gone forward with it. So go check that out over there. That was from this summer, I think. But this amazing woman made it so that women have a choice to prosecute or not, because when they destroy the evidence, they remove that choice to seek justice. So thank you, Amanda. Let me know if you heard that comment song. Leon art comment song. Weird art comment song. I saw these the other day when I was walking around. I don't know what it is, but it seems almost like Mr. Potato Head. Weird art comment song. If you're new here, I sing a song every time with weird stuff. Sometimes they're not. I just talk about things so you can tap a comment during the Leon art comment song. Look, it's Wonder Woman and pot thing. Leon art comment song. Look at this stuff, it made me so happy to see. Arts, weird art, look, it's hidden, you wouldn't even notice it. Leon arts comment song. Kitty cat graffiti. Leon cut, look at this thing in the middle. Comment song. Leon art comment song. Follow my Patreon for more travel stuff. Et voila.